Seth, I know you're big on free speech. Babylon Bee wouldn't exist if you didn't have freedom of speech, and I'm full supportive of that. You said platforms are an issue, which I assume you're referring to X. Are you saying that Elon and heads of platforms need to censor speech that they determine as anti-Semitic? And if so, by what definition do they censor? Would that definition censor this verse from the Bible? The Jews who killed both the Lord Jesus and their own prophets and drove us out and don't please God and are contrary to all men. 1 Thessalonians 2:14.
I think you may have
I think he should be removed. I think he should be removed.
Excuse me, we will not have outbursts from the audience. If there's a further outburst, I will ask you to leave.
Thank you, Chairman.
All right, you're out. Please escort this gentleman. We will not be interrupted.
Thank you. We're having a discussion. It's very important.
I think you may have misheard what I said about platforms. I said platforms are not the problem. Promotion is the problem. So what I advocate for, I actually personally advocated for Nick Fuentes to be reinstated on X when Elon took it over. Not because I like what he has to say, but because I love that he has the right to say it. So even these ideas that I steadfastly oppose, I think the solution to them is to push back on them. Better speech, more speech, good speech in response to bad speech. So you may have just misunderstood what I was saying there about the platforms.
Yeah, I understand. Thank you. And then, Leo, thank you so much for being here. What anti-Semitic actions have taken place? I've heard a lot of examples of harmful words and protests, but aren't we free in this nation to have the right to protest, protected by the First Amendment? As I said, Seth, love free speech, as do I. So words are protected. What I'm concerned about is what further legislation do we need around free speech?
Well, first of all, let me be very clear. I've been a civil rights attorney 35 years. I am a strong, strong believer in free speech. You will not have me challenge anyone's right to speak. I support Seth on that. But when you match speech with conduct, criminal conduct, such as blocking access to someone's right to go to school, along with the speech, then you cross a line where there may be a criminal activity where the affirmative defense of free speech no longer exists. We had a lot of discussion about a school that I'm embarrassed that I went to, UCLA Law School. We heard what was going on. I was sitting there cringing because it was true. And we had people who were block access. Speech, I'm all good for that. Going back to what I originally said, all those charges in which the line was crossed, where it went from speech to conduct, believe it or not, the local prosecutor dismissed all those charges, the criminal charges. So that's why I'm saying this problem is really on a local level. But I will support anyone's right on speech. It's when they match it with conduct that might cross the line and would be considered criminal in and of itself.
But aren't there already laws to protect that?
Oh, you never heard me say in my presentation, there are existing laws that should be utilized. I'm not talking about creating new laws.
So as the chairman of whatever
the task force.
The task force, yes, thank you. What do you recommend as far as further laws?
I mentioned it today. Well, first of all, Title VI is a funding law that should be used. Title VII is very critical. Civil Rights Act 1965, which allows employees who are facing discriminatory misconduct to seek action. Even union organizations can be used for Title VII. So those were the two that I was referring to. And what is a great weapon, which I have learned, is that Jewish faculty members in public unions are being denied right to participate. That's a Title VII action. So what I'm saying is, under the rubric of what is currently in existence, civil rights laws, I think rights of Jewish Americans can be defended, can be executed properly. And if I was making any recommendation, there should be litigation under those two sections, Title VI and Title VII.
Thank you. And then one last question for Seth. I know you were at the Hamptons with Charlie Kirk. I know he was labeled an anti-Semite at the very end. Would you like to condemn him being labeled an anti-Semite?
Charlie was not an anti-Semite. Charlie loved the Jewish people dearly. And so I think that's very silly. Charlie was invited and was open to having debates about anything, including whether or not we should be supporting Israel, for example, in the current war. He's open to having those conversations. And he was very strongly irritated by people making those accusations at him by simply saying that we should be willing to have these conversations, because he didn't view that as crossing the line into anti-Semitism. Neither do I, up to a point. There are people who try to conceal their anti-Semitism under the guise of merely criticizing Israel, and you can see they're not merely criticizing Israel. But Charlie wasn't an anti-Semite, not even close, the opposite.